Let's go out to Austin, Texas, and let's speak with Amanda. Amanda, welcome to the show. What are we going to talk about today?
Hi, Michael. Thanks for taking my call. I have to say I'm very nervous to talk to you.
I'm a terrifying man.
You've helped me so much. I have relapsed in my eating disorder, and I wanted to get some help with your thoughts on. There's something I'm not seeing with the connection of the outside, and I know you just talked to Laura about this, and it was wonderful. If something makes me happy in my life, in a circumstance or something, I feel happy, and then I feel, well, it's not the circumstance, it's just my thinking. So it doesn't matter what happens out there because it's just my thinking. And it's easier if something bad happens and I feel bad, I can recognize it's just my thinking I'm feeling. Don't worry about the outside world. Does that make any sense?
It does, yeah. Yeah, I mean, go ahead, though.
I have so much I want to ask you, but I'm narrowing it down. I listened to one of your talks at the end of Stress, where you told a story about the dragon, the fire-breathing dragon,
mm-hmm.
and that gave me such insight, and I was able to really conquer my behaviors, and it was just like a light switch went off, and I was wonderful, and then I relapsed again, and so I find myself looking again for that insight that changed everything.
So Amanda, can I, rather than have you go on, can I speak to what I've already heard?
Please do.
Okay, and then for everyone else listening, I'm going to tell the dragon story after I'm done with Amanda, just because if they haven't heard it, we'll share the dragon story. But so the first thing I want to say is, you know, I'm sorry that you're suffering, and I mean that. Like I want to say that because everything else that I say may sound like, yeah, you're suffering. I don't mean that. I genuinely, it sucks to be in it. And when I'm in it, I'm no good to anyone. So I do want to say that up front.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to take two things that you said and speak to those. So one thing you talked about was, well, I know it's, you know, my thinking, so it doesn't really matter what happens, and it's easier to kind of see, it's nicer to kind of go, oh, I don't have to suffer because that bad thing happened, but it sounds like you think that you're not supposed to feel good because that good thing happened.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's part one. We're going to talk to that. And then the other thing I want to speak to is this idea of relapse.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so can we speak to relapse first?
Please.
Yeah, does relapse make you feel as miserable as it makes me feel?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I.
Yeah. So here's why I don't find that a very useful way of describing engaging in a behavior that I recognize may be unsustainable long term for the well-being of my physical organism.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. It's not. We do what we do. This is my understanding that I'm sharing. Okay. We do what we do, whether it is shopping, gambling, you know, having sex with strangers, biting our fingernails, scratching our arms, watching too much TV, taking heroin, beating people up. We actually do it to get out of pain. It's our best attempt at getting back to okay. So whether it's more socially acceptable or personally acceptable to me what my coping behavior is that I do to try, just out of habit, do to try to get back to okay, or whether it's completely unacceptable, it's really, they're all of a muchness. You know, whether you know, whether somebody cuts or they pull out their hair or they pluck their eyebrows or they fill their house with crap from the Home Shopping Network. I'm sure there's some lovely things on the Home Shopping Network, but I'm just talking about the crap, right? It's all the same thing. It is an attempt through manipulating my brain chemistry, often by manipulating the outside world, but sometimes directly through drugs and sex and things like that, to get back to a place of peace and equilibrium inside myself. Okay, or for sometimes some people describe it as getting back to a feeling of aliveness instead of numbness.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So honestly, unless you're kicking puppies or killing babies, which for me are the two that I'm really against, I think to try and make yourself give up a behavior that is right now in those moments your best way you found of coping is kind of mean.
It's such a relief to hear.
Because, so here's the next bit of that. Because those behaviors ultimately are self-harming. In other words, long term, it really doesn't do a body good to shoot up too much heroin, in my experience. And I'm saying that facetiously, but I know a number of people who have killed themselves or almost killed themselves that way. So I'm not being as facetious as I sound.
Yeah.
It is really useful to see if we can get at what's the source of that discomfort that's so intense that we feel like we need to do something that extreme to get away from it. And what's the source of that well-being that we think we need to engage in something so intense to get back to? And, I sometimes describe it as when you stop taking the poison, you stop needing the antidote.
Yes.
Well, we don't take the poison on purpose. We just don't understand what it is that's poisoning us.
Exactly.
And what's poisoning anybody, that came out funny, but it's like anybody, I'm just trying to underline it with my voice, right, is thought believed. It's thinking that becomes so all-consuming that we literally cannot feel the electricity coming through the wire. We can no longer feel the life force coming through our blade of grass. We can't feel the ocean behind our drop of water. And we feel cut off, and we feel separate, and we feel lost, and we feel alone, and we are willing to do anything, no matter how harmful we might in a calmer, quieter moment know it might be, in order to get back to that feeling. I remember, go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, no, you're just hitting the nail on the head. It's just beautiful.
So I remember reading, and I think it was John Belushi, who died of a heroin overdose. I remember him describing heroin once as like French kissing God. Now, it would be understandable if that was like the only way to get a French kiss from God. Like that you might want to do that, right? Well, turns out, I'm going to go to hell, aren't I? Turns out God's a bit of a slut. And what I mean by that is like God will French kiss anybody. You just have to ask. Right? I mean, it really is there for the taking. The joy of life is in the living. It's in us. It's just our nature. We don't have to earn it. We just have to not hide from it anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think I'm going to stop on that part of the conversation. Just because I'm getting self-conscious now, thinking, I hope my wife's not listening to the show. I'm in for it. Right. And let me speak to the other thing, this idea that, okay, I know that my bad feelings aren't to do with the bad things that it's very easy and normal to hear something with the ring of truth and think it's a good idea that you're supposed to do something about. So it's very easy for people to hear, oh, I'm living in the feeling of my thinking, So I should just tell myself that it's just my thinking, and then I won't feel so bad.
That's exactly what I do.
Yeah. It's not my first rodeo, Amanda. See the little Austin, Texas thing I just did there? Right? Yeah. Now, what the only value, as far as I'm concerned, about listening to somebody like me go on and on and on and on about the same thing week in and week out, is that at some point, somebody takes a look for themselves and they actually see the truth of it. They get an insight, a sight from within. They see with a capital S. They hear with a capital H. And they know, let's give it a capital K, that it's true.
Yeah.
Now, if it's true, it's just true, and you don't have to think about it. And you don't have to remind yourself of it. You don't have to tell yourself that.
Yeah.
Until you know that it's true, it doesn't really help to try and convince yourself of it.
Yeah. So, what do I do? I don't know. I want to know it to be true.
Yeah. Well, but here's what's even better than wanting that is how about wanting to see for yourself whether or not it's true. Mm-hmm. Now, I can say that it's true because I see it. You can hear me say that and go, wow, he sounds really certain. I want some of that. Uh-huh. But actually, you're better off seeing the truth for yourself, even if it would mean that I'm full of crap, if it turns out that I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. And if you look for the truth of it, if you look to see, you will start to see every single human being around you living in a thought-created reality. Sometimes a heaven, sometimes a hell, mm-hmm. but a separate reality made entirely of thought. And then when you see that around you, you start to see it in yourself.
Yeah.
If you look, I don't have a better direction to give you than within, which is really tricky because that sounds like so where, like behind my rib cage, to the left or right of my heart, right? No, I don't know, but if you close your eyes, like not out there,
not in my thoughts,
and not in your thoughts, and see if you can feel, intuit, sense, glimpse the space inside of which thoughts arise. Mm-hmm. That's the universal mind. That's universal consciousness. That's universal thought. That's the truth of who we are. We are the unconditioned mind. But one of the properties of the unconditioned mind is that it's continually being conditioned by thought.
Exactly, yes.
So if you want to, here's your homework.
Okay.
Okay. Stop trying to get yourself to do what you can't yet do and go French kiss God.
Okay.
Fair enough?
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amanda. Really nice to talk to you.